March 2nd, Leviticus 19 verse 11 to 20 verse 27. You must not steal. You must not act deceptively or lie to one another. You must not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord. You must not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages due a hired hand must not remain with you until morning. You must not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but you are to fear your God. I am the Lord. You must not act unjustly when rendering judgment. Do not be partial to the poor or give preference to the rich. Judge your neighbor fairly. You must not go about spreading slander among your people. You must not jeopardize your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. You must not hate your brother in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor directly, and you will not incur guilt because of him. You must not take revenge or bear a grudge against members of your community. But you must love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. You are to keep my statutes. You must not crossbreed two different kinds of your livestock. Sow your fields with two kinds of seed, or put on a garment made of two kinds of material. If a man has sexual intercourse with a woman who is a slave designated for another man, but she has not been redeemed or given her freedom, there must be punishment. They are not to be put to death because she had not been freed. However, he must bring his ram as a restitution offering to the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest will make atonement on his behalf before the Lord with the ram of the restitution offering for the sin he has committed, and he will be forgiven for the sin he committed. When you come into the land and plant any kind of tree for food, you are to consider the fruit forbidden. It will be forbidden for you for 3 years. It is not to be eaten in the 4th year. All its fruits may be consecrated as a praise offering to the Lord. But if the 5th year, you may eat its fruit. In this way, its yield will increase for you. I am the Lord your God. You are not to eat anything with blood in it. You are not to practice divination or sorcery. You are not to cut off the hair at the sides of your head or mar the edge of your beard. You are not to make gashes on your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am the Lord. Do not debase your daughter by making her a prostitute, or the land will be prostituted and filled with depravity. You must keep my Sabbaths and reserve my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Do not turn to mediums or consult spiritists, or you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. You are to rise in the presence of the elderly and honor the old. Fear your God. I am the Lord. When a foreigner lives with you in your land, you must not oppress him. You must regard the foreigner who lives with you as the native born among you. You are to love him as yourself, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. You must not act unfairly in measurements of length, weight, or volume. You are to have honest balances, honest weights, and honest dry measure, and an honest liquid measure. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You must keep all my statutes and all my ordinances, and do them. I am the Lord. The Lord spoke to Moses, say to the Israelites, any Israelite or foreigner living in Israel who gives any of his children to Molech must be put to death. The people of the country are to stone him. I will turn against that man and cut him off from his people, because he gave his offspring to Molech. defiling my sanctuary and profaning my holy name. But if the people of the country look the other way, when the man gives any of his children to Molech, and do not put him to death, then I will turn against that man and his family, and cut off from their people both him and all who follow him, prostituting themselves with Molech. Whoever turns to mediums or spiritists and prostitutes himself with them, I will turn against that person and cut him off from his people. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, for I am the Lord your God. Keep my statutes and do them. I am the Lord who sets you apart. If anyone curses his father or mother, he must be put to death. He has cursed his father or mother, his blood is on his own hands. If a man commits adultery with a married woman, if he commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress must be put to death. If a man sleeps with his father's wife, he has shamed his father. Both of them must be put to death. Their blood is on their own hands. If a man sleeps with his daughter-in-law, both of them must be put to death. They have acted perversely. Their blood is on their own hands. If a man sleeps with a man as with a woman, they have both committed an abomination. They must be put to death. Their blood is on their own hands. If a man marries a woman and her mother, it is deprived. Both he and they must be burned with fire, so that there will be no depravity among you. If a man has sexual intercourse with an animal, he must be put to death. You are also to kill the animal. If a woman comes near any animal and mates with it, you are to kill the woman and the animal. They must be put to death. Their own blood is on them. If a man marries his sister, whether his father's daughter or his mother's daughter, and they have sexual relations, it is a disgrace. They must be cut off publicly from their people. He has had sexual intercourse with his sister. He will bear his punishment. If a man sleeps with a menstruating woman and has sexual intercourse with her, he has exposed the source of her flow, and she has uncovered the source of her blood. Both of them must be cut off from their people. You must not have sexual intercourse with your mother's sister or your father's sister, for it is exposing one's own blood relative. Both people will bear their punishment. If a man sleeps with his aunt, he has shamed his uncle. They will bear their guilt and die childless. If a man marries his brother's wife, it is impurity. He has shamed his brother. They will be childless. You are to keep all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them, so that the land where I am bringing you to live will not vomit you out. You must not follow the statutes of the nations I am driving out before you, for they did all these things, and I abhorred them. And I promised you, you will inherit their land, since I will give it to you and possess a land flowing with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, who set you apart from the peoples. Therefore you must distinguish the clean animal from the unclean one, and the unclean bird from the clean bird. You are not to make yourselves detestable by any land, animal, bird, or whatever crawls on the ground. I have set these apart as unclean for you. You are to be holy to me, because I, the Lord, am holy, and I have set you apart from the nations to be mine. A man or a woman who is a medium or a spiritist must be put to death. They are to be stoned. Their blood is on their own hands. Psalm 29, verse 1 to 6. Give the Lord, you heavenly beings. Give the Lord glory and strength. Give the Lord the glory due his name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. The voice of the water is above the waters. The God of glory thunders, the Lord above vast waters. The voice of the Lord in power, the voice of the Lord in splendor. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord shatters the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon skip like a calf, and Sharon like a young wild ox. Proverbs 6 verse 32 to 33. The one who commits adultery lacks sense. Whoever does so destroys himself. He will get a beating and dishonor, and his disgrace will never be removed. Mark 6 verse 21 to 46. Now an opportune time came on his birthday, when Herod gave a banquet for his nobles, military commanders, and the leading men of Galilee. When Herodias' own daughter came in the dance, she pleased Herod and his guests. The king said to the girl, "Ask me whatever you want, and I'll give it to you." So he swore oaths to her, "Whatever you ask me, I will give you, up to half my kingdom." Then she went out and said to her mother, "What should I ask for?" "John the Baptist's head," she said. Immediately she hurried to the king and said, "I want you to give me John the Baptist's head on a platter right now." Though the king was deeply distressed because of his oaths and the guests, he did not want to refuse her. The king immediately sent for an executioner and commanded him to bring John's head. So he went and beheaded him in prison, brought his head on a platter, and gave it to the girl. Then the girl gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard about it, they came and removed his corpse and placed it in a tomb. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a remote place and rest a while." For many people were coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. So they went away in the boat by themselves to a remote place. But many saw them leaving and recognized them. People ran there by land from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. So as he stepped ashore, he saw a huge crowd and had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Then he began to teach them many things. When it was already late, his disciples approached him and said, "This place is a wilderness, and it is already late. Send them away so that they can go into the surrounding countryside and villages to buy themselves something to eat." "You give them something to eat," he responded. They said to them, "Should we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat?" And he asked them, "How many loaves do you have? Go look." When they found out, they had 5 and 2 fish. Then he instructed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in ranks of hundreds and fifties. Then he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke the loaves. He kept giving them to his disciples to set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. Everyone ate and was filled. Then they picked up 12 baskets full of pieces of bread and fish. Now these who ate the loaves were 5,000 men. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After he said goodbye to them, he went away to pray to the mountain to pray. Be selective. He said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a remote place and rest a while." Mark 6 verse 31. Disregard of our physical life may affect our spiritual well-being. For what goes on in the body greatly influences, though it does not control, what goes on in the soul and spirit. My suggestion in relation to this physical aspect of our lives is this: discipline your times of rest and reaction. Some reactions do not recreate. Rather, they exhaust one. They leave one morally and spiritually flabby and unfit. I find that after watching some television programs, I have been challenged or lifted, but others leave me feeling inwardly ravished. The delicacies of life seem somehow to have been invaded, the finest flowers of the spirit trampled on, and one comes out drooping. I am learning to be more selective in my recreations. One should never expose oneself to a film or television program that is likely to leave one spiritually or morally depleted, not if you value the higher values. It is like allowing pigs into your parlor. The same can be said of other recreations. Some pieces of literature can leave you with sense of moral and spiritual exhaustion. Don't fall for the idea that one has to read everything that comes to hand in order to understand life. This is where many of our Christian young people need help. Does one have to wallow in a mud hole in order to understand filth? Does a doctor have to take germs into his own body in order to understand how they function? Recreation is extremely important to help us stay spiritually fresh, but we need to make sure our recreations really recreate. Prayer. Father, you have made me for health and rhythm. Help me to be sensitive to all the things I need to do so that I am at my best spiritually and physically. I am to honor you in everything I do, even in my recreations. Amen.